Hey, everybody. Welcome back to session 4, the Optitex stand-up meetings. Bill, Josh, and Sabrina are here with you again. Let's go through today's questions that were posted to optitex.usa@efi.com. Quickly, before we get started, thanks to everybody that's been sending in their questions, and keep them coming.
Hi, Josh. So our first question today, what are my options for selecting or inputting fabric defects in markers?
This does come up from time to time. The example being that you have an area of a marker based on the fabric that you're using that has some kind of flaw in it. Maybe it's a thread that runs along that's not right, or some area that's been damaged by sun or something else. So you want to be able to lay a marker but avoid that area. And so we have in marker something called flaws. So it's here, and I'm going to grab that flaw tool. So you can actually just draw the flaw on the marker, and we do that just by using the left click, and I can click and hold and draw out a flaw. Now when you do that, you'll get a dialog box that populates. So it gives you the dimensions so you can actually measure and do this specifically to a target area. Let's say the left boundary is at 83.5 inches. And the right boundary is going to be at 122 inches. And then again, for the top and bottom, okay, so the top is going to be, let's say 35, and the bottom is going to be 19.5. So you can type it in and do it that way. You hit OK. Or when we create a flaw, okay, we can say the whole length or the whole width of that particular section. From there, when you go to place your pieces, whether you're auto nesting or doing it manually, this will act as a barrier. You will not be able to place your pieces within that. If you want to, you can always select the flaw and delete a single flaw, or you can choose to clear all of them off the marker at once.
Great answer. Thank you. For our next one, does PDF have the ability to allow me to see history of changes I have made to a pattern piece while I'm working on it?
Thanks, Sabrina. That actually is a great question, and it makes me think of 3 things that I want to show everybody. One of them is kind of unrelated, but I think it's a good thing for people to know, and it's sort of adjacent to the things that you talked about. So the first one is open backup, and that happens if the program for some reason crashes or you lose power or something happens and you didn't save the file. It's a way to get the sort of last file that was worked on. What I mean by that is I'm going to go into File. I'm going to go down to File Utilities, and there's this here, open backup. So if you do happen to have a crash or the software closes and you didn't save, the first thing you should do when you open up your pattern is go here to open up the backup. In your preferences, as we covered yesterday, so I can add to the stuff that we did yesterday, under the save section, you have how often the autosave, that backup, how often it's being done. So you can set it at 1 minute. That's the default. I don't know why you'd go much longer than that, but you should check your settings. And that means you're only going to lose 1 minute of work, which is great if you have some kind of problem with the software. The other thing is that you can choose where the backup location is stored. So if you want it to be, this is a default location, but if you want it to be in a specific area, you can always change that location. So that's the first one. So the second thing that I wanted to show is relates more directly to the question, which is there a history sort of function? And we do have that. So I'm going to go ahead and File and go to File Utilities and actually come down here to History. So I'm going to invoke that, and it's going to prompt me to save this pattern. Now this is a read-only pattern, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes, but I'm going to need to save it somewhere. So I'm just going to go quickly here and save it with my name on it. Hit save. Now once you've done that, you'll get a dialog box, and what you want to do is you want to check automatically save history when saving files, and then you can close the history. Now what happens is that every time you go to save the file, you'll get a history dialog box. So this could be a comment. So maybe it's review, no change. And you hit OK. You can skip this step if you want. And then you can also store a version. Now, storing a version will increase your file size because it's actually keeping each pattern revision as you go along. So if there's no change, there's really no reason to store a version, so I can just hit OK. Now, once I've done that, you can always go back to the file, utility, under history, and you can see all of the changes that have been made and the date that they were done, whether there's a stored version or not. You can click on that. You can delete the comment. You can make an additional comment. You can also open, should I have stored the actual version. So this is a nice way to be able to track your changes and do your patterns. So if you want to be able to review all the old versions, you can do it this way. One other note, in your preferences, under your save options, you can say save history in the backup. So what that's going to mean is that when your backup file is saved, like we just talked about, it'll include all of the previous history data. You don't want to lose that should you need to go to the backup. The last thing I want to show is how to use track lines. For experienced users, this is probably nothing new, but I'm going to zoom in on this piece. Now, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that the track lines are activated. You can have them on or off. So we do that by right-clicking, scrolling down to track lines, and making sure that the track lines section is checked. Now, I'm also going to take the opportunity at this point to click Show Track Lines. You can do that here, or you can also do it down here in the status bar. Once we've done that, any move that we make is going to show us visually where that change occurred. Now, there's also some preferences involved with this. You can choose to have it be a single track line for where your piece originated, or you can have it show for every change that you make. I personally think that is a little bit too much, because if you're making fine-tuning changes, you're going to end up with a lot of track lines that can be very sort of visually overwhelming. But to look at where those are, you go to Tools and Preferences, and let's go ahead and just actually use the search. So I'm typing in track. So you can see here, create only one track line for each segment. That's currently checked, and that is how I want it. So if you wanted multiple track lines, you would uncheck that.
Thanks, Josh. We actually got 3 answers for 1 question. So at this point, I'll hand it back over to Bill.
Wow, what a question there. Thanks, Sabrina. And Josh, as always, great content. Folks, don't forget optitex.usa@efi.com. We're posting a video every day to answer the questions our users have on the software. And make sure after you watch the video, you like and put a comment in there so that we see the feedback. And again, don't forget to submit your questions to optitex.usa@efi.com. Look forward to posting another one tomorrow. Thank you.